Give yourself a short introduction, talk a little bit about what you're passionate about, what your expertise is in, and then also give a brief overview of the landscape of potential risks and benefits of AGI. So this panel is really setting a landscape of what we're all looking at today as a crew over the 4 days. How do we balance risks? How do we balance benefits? How do we move forward in the best way possible towards AGI? What are those risks and benefits that we'll all be discussing over the following days on the summit and unconference? So, Gregory, please.
Hi. Good. So my name is Gregory Stock. I run a company called Socratic Sciences, and I'm interested in the sort of epidemic of loneliness and social isolation that's existing today as a result of, or at least it's contributed to by social media as it exists today. My background is in biophysics, molecular biology, and I've done a number of things looking at kind of the noosphere and the implications of new technology. And should we introduce, or should I move into what I see as the regulatory?
Go ahead, please touch on what you see as the greatest risks, the greatest benefits of AGI, of superintelligence, and what those could mean to our shared future.
So I think it's important to talk about the benefits, which are so manifest because it's this enormous power that is coming into being at present. And so we've talked about how to apply those towards longevity, towards energy, towards all of those possibilities. So it seems to me that there is the risk that people talk about often are, well, what's going to happen when AGI is in the driver's seat and takes control in some ways. And I think those, I would agree with Ben, are kind of absurd to look at, because the idea that we're going to control superintelligence in some way is crazy. And so to me, the risks are the very proximate ones, and they come from humans, in that we have this enormous power that is multiplied so that small organizations or individuals can really do things that could be very challenging for us. And you can see that in other realms as well. And so that's one of the issues, is how we take that power, and when they're manifested, not when AGI is in control and is making somewhat rational kinds of decisions about things, because the dystopias there I'm comfortable with, because they seem so crazy. The idea, oh, we're going to get rid of humans or something like this, it doesn't make any sense. We're terribly valuable. But when we're applying these powerful tools for the things that humans always do, fight with one another and become tribalized and all of these sorts of things, that could be very dangerous in that transitional period. The second thing that I see as a significant risk, which was highlighted in Janet's previous talk, is the idea that everybody gets all up in arms and there's this enormous regulatory effort around it, which really retards the development of these things and extends that period of transition, so that humans are in control of these enormous powers for long periods of time. And every other regulatory realm that I've seen, there's enormous regulatory capture. This is not about the public good. This is about the maintenance of the organizations. I see biotech, I'm very familiar with. The regulatory capture there is profound, and it happens in other major areas, and I see that as a serious problem for AGI in the future. And you can see the enthusiasm with all of this regulatory activity. I mean, it's, my God, what damage could be done in that realm. So I see that as a huge, huge problem as well. So those are, to me, the two sort of areas that, are we going to go too slowly? Are we going to retard these possibilities and sort of have the existing realm extend over a very long period of time? And that seems to be something that we can really address. And then another one is kind of the unintended consequences of well-intentioned sorts of things that we do. And those are the unknown unknowns are very, very difficult for us to deal with. And then there's just malevolent action with these things. So to me, the thing would be important is to move very rapidly to try and build an immune system of some sort to protect ourselves from easy sort of activity by those who are maybe not so sophisticated, but can draw upon all of the shared work of everyone and, you know, create problems in a larger way. So those are the major issues that I see.
It's a wonderful overview. Thank you very much. I appreciate that perspective. So, Jose, as a vice chair of Humanity Plus, among other things, you've thought a lot about these unknown unknowns. How does humanity look at, grapple with what we don't know what's going to happen in the future? And from that perspective, and from all your perspectives, what do you see as the greatest risks, the greatest benefits of AGI and ASI?
Yes, but first of all, let me tell you, I have been involved in artificial intelligence since I went to MIT. One of my favorite professors at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology was Marvin Minsky, who was one of the scientists who coined the word, the expression artificial intelligence. So I loved what he was doing. He has a fantastic expression. Robots will inherit the earth, but we will be robots. They will be us. So we are merging. Another one of my favorite professors and mentors is Ray Kurzweil. And I am one of the founding faculty of Singularity University in the year 2009. And Ray Kurzweil talks about this all the time. In fact, I had the privilege to receive the manuscript of his latest book that comes out in June. The Singularity is Nearer. And in that book, he explains very well what will happen in the next few years. And he keeps his two magic dates of 2029 for passing the Alan Turing test and reaching longevity escape velocity, and the year 2045 for the technological singularity and immortality, which is the other point that I like, immortality. In fact, Ray Kurzweil writes in my book that just came out in English, I'm very proud, The Death of Death. Not only Ray Kurzweil recommends this book, Michio Kaku, that many of you probably recognize, who is also an immortalist, and George Church, who is a candidate to the Nobel Prize in Medicine. So I'm really proud, and my fantastic co-author who is here from London, David Good, he will be also speaking tomorrow, David. So we are talking here about the death of death, and for this, we need artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a fantastic tool, as we have seen with DeepMind, AlphaFold. AlphaFold could fold proteins that we could never do as humans, because we have very limited capabilities. So that is my background, Singularity University, MIT, Marvin Minsky. The things that worry me, and that Janet said so well, because Janet, now I live in Europe, you know, I live in Spain, and I'll tell you something horrible. This morning, checking the news in Spain, the Vice President of Spain said today that artificial intelligence will destroy 500,000 jobs in Spain. You know, this is horrible. The Vice President of the country said that today. And actually, she's a communist, a Stalinist, Leninist, the Vice President of Spain. And her government has destroyed already more than those jobs. And it's not creating any jobs. So my problem is not artificial intelligence. I think this is the greatest gift of science and technology, the greatest gift ever we can have as humans. So I am not worried about being more intelligent. I want to be more intelligent. I want to be with intelligent people. I want to be with artificial intelligence higher than me. What worries me is not artificial intelligence. It is human stupidity. Human stupidity. That is what worries me. And the Vice President of Spain is an example of human stupidity at the highest level. At the highest level. So I would like to have a robot president. I would like to have an artificial intelligence president. So that worries me, human stupidity. The other thing that worries me, because some of you know me for a long time ago and came to my conferences when I lived in Venezuela, which is a totalitarian communist dictatorship, horrible country now, is that the bad guys are betting on artificial intelligence. Vladimir Putin has openly said that whoever controls artificial intelligence will rule the world. And the Chinese also have said that, the Prime Minister of China. So I am worried about the bad guys. That is why I think the West, the free countries, should not stop. In fact, we should move forward before the Russians or the Chinese. So that is my concern, because I have lived under a communist totalitarian regime in Venezuela, and I don't want them to have access to this before the free countries do. So that is my second concern. Human stupidity and bad guys get into this first. So I don't want a moratorium. I want to accelerate this. And by the good guys, I want competition, I want OpenAI, I want Google DeepMind, I want all the other companies, even the Chinese, I would say, because Baidu is also trying to advance very quickly. And actually, one of my bosses, I have several bosses, Jerry Glenn, that will be speaking later, because I'm also with the Millennium Project. We published this book about the year 2050, where we have 3 scenarios about the future, from the best to the worst. Of course, the scenarios take good and bad things, and in the good scenario, artificial intelligence is very good. In the bad scenario, artificial intelligence is very bad. Anyway, so right now we are doing a study that will be presented at the Summit of the Future, the first Summit of the Future in history in New York, September 22nd and 23rd. And so we are trying to give our little advice about possible alignment issues and governance issues related to artificial intelligence. And we have interviewed the top 50 experts in the world in artificial intelligence, including our very own Ben Goertzel here. So Ben Goertzel gave us his views, fantastic views. He doesn't care too much, like myself. I think this is the greatest gift. So how something good will have bad consequences. It's like immortality. When I talk about immortality, people say, oh, immortality will have bad consequences. And I say, this is health. This is longevity. This is living longer. So what is bad about living longer? If you think there is something bad, well, why don't you commit suicide? Because then you are part of the problem. You are not part of the solution. So the same with artificial intelligence. This is a great thing. It has helped out to solve the alpha folding, the protein folding problem, and so many other things. This is an incredibly positive technology. And Ben Goertzel said it also before. This is a technology that has incredible benefits, as opposed to nuclear warheads. Nuclear weapons are bad. But artificial intelligence is 1,000 times better than it could be worse. Of course, we have to be careful, but I think we are careful anyway. So I just want to say I'm very positive about artificial intelligence, like my mentors, Marvin Minsky and Ray Kurzweil.
Thank you very much, Jose. And I'm very passionate. Thank you for sharing. Elizabeth, founder of 1,000 Black Voices. I'd like to please give us an introduction to yourself, your background, your domain of expertise. And then I'd love to hear your perspectives on the potential risks of AGI, the potential benefits of AGI, and what you see in the space of diversity, inclusion, access, on a slightly different level than Jose was talking about globally, but even within a country, access disparities.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here, and it's just amazing. I'm here actually also to learn from you, all of you, and so this is a really important part of my journey as well. And in saying that, I'm always looking to learn. So I guess my background started as a scientist, a positivist. Along that way, understanding a bit more about microbiology, biochemistry, moved into really business, focusing very much around entrepreneurship. That's what my PhD is in, and emotions. And through that journey, really what keeps me awake at night is really having this focus on an ethical approach to how we engage with individuals. Fairness, access, that's really very important for me. For me as well, it's really important to have different perspectives, understand different perspectives. So in my engagements, from a functional perspective, understanding regulation, Janet talked about that earlier. I didn't put my hand up at the time, but legal and law, and I've done that as well. There's a number of different things. So I have run a business school, run the MBA, DBA, various different things, worked in reinsurance, and at present I am founder of 1,000 Black Voices, where we support Black founders to ensure they have access to social and financial capital. which is a key challenge. So, in regards to what I see as some of the benefits, we're living in a time of exponential growth, and like I said, that part of that is learning for me. It's also important to understand, for me, that again, it's about how we interact. We haven't been, as humans, haven't been great at, equity over the years. Things are improving, depends on different goal sets of, the time that we're in. So when we're talking about human values and what values that we want to hold dear, I question that. I question, are we able to decide in how we progress moving forward with AI? I think there's so many benefits to having AI there to support our decision making, to ensure that we are fair in our dealings with individuals and people, because we haven't been great at doing that. I did say that I studied emotion, and we have that responsibility in how we develop AI, but I don't believe that we should be putting ourselves upon AI in that sense. I think it's more of a co-joint development with AI, that AI has a responsibility as much as we do. If we're working from a social interactions perspective, for example, Bloomer, we, in an interaction, we respond to someone and they respond to us. There's that feedback, give and take in that particular interaction. And in that interaction, we also have emotions that we engage with. Now, I am learning about consciousness. It's not, I'm looking at consciousness from a social perspective. But if we are looking at AGI with consciousness, what emotions are they going to be displaying? It's going to be displaying. And where is that coming from? How is it going to identify itself? What's its self-interpretation of who or what it is in that particular time? So these are questions I do have, so I guess I'm asking you more questions around your development and engagement in access with AGI in regards to the emotional perspective. We as humans, we mask our emotions. I guess I had an interview yesterday with you, and I suppose in an interview I'm supposed to sit there and I'm presenting as an expert in something. But I was rather emotional. You wouldn't necessarily expect that someone in an interview would be really emotional about what they're saying, crying in effect. And so my emotion work, my emotion management would be to close that down and present as an expert. Now, if we as humans are masking our emotions, changing how we interact with each other, because there's some feeling rules that we have out there, some value system that says we need to behave in a certain way, how is that going to impact our engagement with AI, AGI? How are we going to reference, and how is that going to reference with us? And so it's back to, again, that we're masking how we feel, but we're presenting bias in a certain way. So these are all questions I do have in essence. So I see a benefit in AGI in supporting us in how we interact and doing away with bias, which is really important. I see the downsides, of course, the questions that people have, not necessarily downsides of AI, but downsides in the fact that we do not understand. And so that not understanding something that's different brings about fear.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. That's exactly an entire domain, an entire area that we need to be so conscious of. We had a question actually from the live stream that got passed up fortuitously. AGI is watching us, or at least AI is watching us right now in this conference, in this event online. It's being trained on our data. What are we showing it? What conclusions is it reaching? What are we teaching it right here? If we're vulnerable in an interview, if we're vulnerable on stage, if we're sharing what we're passionate about or what we're afraid of, what is it learning? So thank you very much. No introduction. introduction, an expert in cybernetics, cybersecurity, AI ethics. Please share your perspectives. You've recently been listed as one of the most cited AI authors on AI and safety. So you have a lot to say and a lot of people listening, and we'd love to hear from you your brief perspective on the greatest risks and the greatest benefits that AGI can offer.
Thank you. I will not much my feelings. So my background is in computer science. I've been studying AI safety for well over a decade. This week I published a book, new book. The title is AI, Unexplainable, Unpredictable, Uncontrollable. And I was pleasantly surprised to see everyone from the Ben's keynote, the main panel say, yeah, of course we're not going to control superintelligence, that's obvious. Who would think it's possible? But that means we're creating machines which are not likely to be controlled by us. Why are we doing that? And the answer is half of a panel benefits, right? We like free stuff. We like abundance. We like free labor, physical, cognitive. We like free knowledge in science and medicine. Absolutely. And if we could control those machines and get all the benefits, that's an obvious way to go. But it seems like there is sort of an agreement that we won't be in charge, we won't be in control, and for every benefit there could be a downside. We could get a lot of benefits by using narrow AI systems. Solving protein folding did not require superintelligence. We use narrow systems to get that benefit. The models we have right now, we haven't integrated into the economy. There are trillions of dollars worth of wealth just sitting there waiting for people to start using those systems in every industry. Why do we have to create superintelligence as soon as possible? What we're asking for is essentially a perpetual safety device. By analogy to physics, it's a perpetual motion device. It's impossible. You cannot create a system which, no matter how much it learns, self-improves, modifies, switches domains, never has a bug, never has a problem. Systems as capable, as powerful as what we anticipate superintelligence would be, if they have a bug, could lead to, and that's the big risks of this, existential risk, meaning everyone is dead, or suffering risks, meaning everyone wishes they were dead. So there are really equally bad negative things for every beneficial thing we could consider. Most people talk about things they know and understand. This is the benefits we expect. But there are unknown unknowns. We'll get things so good we can't predict them. There is equivalent bad things we cannot anticipate because we're not super intelligent. I'm often asked, how will AI, it has no hands, how would it take over the world, how would it kill everyone? And I'm trying to explain that you're not asking how superintelligence would do it, you would ask how a human, how Roman Polsky would take over the world. And it's a very different question. I can talk about nanotech, I can talk about viruses, but that's not what a superintelligence would do if it decided for game theoretical reasons that it's safer not to have us around. Ask yourself a few simple questions. What do you have to contribute to a superintelligence, a system by definition better than you at everything? We already kind of agreed that we're not going to control them. There is no undo button once you release this technology. So I think we need to answer those questions before we go all the way. There is no undo button. We see calls for moratoriums. Let's wait 6 months. Why? What happens in 6 months? Makes no sense. You have to make capabilities-based requests. Then you can explain completely how the systems work. You can predict precisely how they get to where they're going. You may know the general direction, but you don't understand how it's going to get there. And you can explain with precision, scientific precision, how you're going to control those systems, or at least steer them in a direction aligned with humanity, which is not a defined term. We don't agree on values. There is 8 billion of us. We don't agree on much. So as soon as you can provide those in a scientific way, I think that would be a great time to move on to benefit fully from superintelligent systems. For now, I would suggest trying to milk what we got. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jay, thank you for joining us up on stage today. You come from a domain, your expertise in cognitive science, as well as AI and artistry or pattern recognition, beauty patterns. Can you share from your perspective, from a cognitive science perspective, something that's critical to the center of AI and humans, and AGI is an actually great exploration of our own cognitive science, right? So can you talk a little bit about what you see as the greatest risks and the greatest benefits that AGI can bring to us?
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. So yeah, I was asked to talk just generally about good things and bad things about AI. And I think, when I was thinking about this, is like, well, most of us seem to already know what this stuff is, right? I mean, engineering horrible viruses, nuclear escalation. The literature is rampant with all the different possible risks. So I was going to go through the risks, but I think that most of us are sort of familiar with it. The benefits. And I want to come back to the risks in just a second, but the benefits are very utopian, right? I mean, almost anything that we can imagine that could be a risk could potentially be a benefit, right? I mean, this thing goes both ways, what they say about technology being a tool and it's guided by human ethics. And so what I think we need really is ethics. I mean, we keep talking about superintelligence, but don't we really need super ethics? How do we govern these things in a way that ensures value alignment? How do we even establish what an objective or hierarchical set of values is, right? There's been some research in psychology that does show that there are common values. So how do we program these into machines? How do we make a moral machine? There's been research on this. But I would ask, why don't we use AI in order to understand ethics instead? I mean, there's sort of like two sides to this thing, right? It's like you can feed human ethics into a machine to get it to align with our supposed interests, or you can use AI, AGI, and ASI to try to help us understand ethics, which is itself a very intractable problem in philosophy, right? There was some recent survey of philosophers where they asked them, what kind of ethical systems do you agree with? Deontological, consequentialist, virtue-based approaches, and they all just were like arguing with each other. So nobody could agree on it. So perhaps superintelligence can be a means towards getting us to a better understanding of what is good. And when we think of AI, we often think of intelligence as, what is intelligence? It's being right. Okay? All right, so good, that's good, we need to be right. That's truth value, but we also need to do right. So being right about something is one side of the coin, but how to do right is the second side of that coin. And I think this is like a vastly neglected side of this field, which is the exploration of ethics. And I just want to sort of end with saying that human beings don't have a very good history of doing things well, and perhaps the future does hold hope for the use of better than human intelligence to understand how we actually implement it.
Thank you very much. That's just a little bit between you all, discussing some of these points that you raised for a few minutes. I do have one more question to end on for everybody, and we are rearranging on the fly, but we're working on it. So please, a little bit of discussion if you have questions for one another, points for one another, and then we'll touch on one last point before we go.
I would like to make a point and ask for some thoughts about it. It seems to me that the perspective is very, very short term. I think Ben mentioned it earlier. There's a sense that we're at a moment of evolutionary transition that is extraordinary. This is something happening that the last time it happened was maybe 700 million years ago when single cells joined together to form multicellular organisms. I mean, this is happening at a planetary level, and AI and ASI and AGI, these are all elements of sort of cognitive structure that are emerging. And so the idea that exactly how we're going to shape this for this short period of time. It's mind-boggling to even imagine where we're going to be 50 years, if not 100 years, or 1,000 years. I mean, these are instants in evolutionary timescale. And so to me, this is something that is emerging out of what's occurring, and maybe in a very short term in the transition we might have some impact. But it's something far beyond who we are as individuals and what we've seen before. And I think an acknowledgement of that and the powerlessness which we have over shaping that. I mean, a single cell is going to say what metazoans and multicellular organisms are going to be. And so, that's something that occurred to me in listening to some of the comments here.
Let me reply quickly to that because I totally agree. This is a historical moment. Nothing compares to this in the human age. In fact, I say this is the end of the human age and the beginning of the post-human age. This is a historical moment. I forgot to mention that Roman was one of our students at Singularity University. And we had these discussions all the time. Because at Singularity University, people were more on the positive side, but there were some people who brought this down to earth, like Roman. So we had these incredible discussions, and I love this, your approach, and you are bold, because among the transhumanists and the singularitarians, you are like an exception to the group. So I don't know if you have read, but you really need to read The Singularities Nearer. And as Ben Gorson mentioned, because the continuation will be probably in 2029, the singularity is here. So anyway, your thoughts are very interesting, but one more thing that Ray Kurzweil says, this is not an invasion of artificial intelligence from Mars. This is something we humans are doing for us, with us, in our planet. So it's not an invasion of artificial intelligence, and also we will be connected to it. And then Elon Musk is right there. We need to be connected to the artificial general intelligence. And I want to be, in 10 years if possible, I want to be connected to the cloud, to the hive mind. So your answer.
So solution Ray proposes to become hybrids with machines assumes that you have something to contribute. If I tape my iPhone 15 to my head right now, it gives me extra capabilities. I am the agent, principal agent, and I will have internet connection, I will have more memory. Nobody tapes Nokia phone to their head because it has nothing to contribute. You will be the biological bottleneck. You are slow, you have almost no memory, you remember like 7 digits, and why are you there? What are you contributing to this equation? Unless you have some religious beliefs about souls and non-material capabilities, you have nothing to contribute. So long term, you will be removed from the system, either explicitly or implicitly. You will not be controlling it, you will not be part of it.
So, Roman, I would say historically that's not the case at all. If you look at higher levels, mitochondria are in every cell that exist in eukaryotic cells. Single cells are in all the metazoan organisms. These subsume the prior levels. What are we worth? We're fantastic. How do you operate in a wet environment? Go down into situations that are not very amenable to AI. The place for high technology is in a vacuum. It's in space. It's not competing on a wet planet. Who is going to create all of the structures that are needed when there rain, there's storms? Humans are fantastic. And if you were a super AI, you wouldn't say, oh, we're going to get rid of all these things. You'd say, oh, we'll enslave them. We'll make them do work for us. Well, who's going to build all the farms? Who's going to do all this? And by the way, we won't even tell them we're doing it because it would be upsetting to them. Who are devoting their lives to technology and to supporting and expanding all of the technologies? This is a synergy. It would be stupidity to eliminate all humans or to,
You are suggesting that superintelligence will not be able to solve rain. Wetness is not a problem for superintelligence. It will be able to overcome it. It will be able to work in all environments. And if you think that the good outcome is it's going to enslave us, then
I was saying that as a joke, okay? We already are. Everybody in this room, they're devoting all of their energies. They work all the time to support technology. You can look at it and say, oh, automobiles, fantastic. We built all these automobiles and we created roads and everything. You could reverse that and say, oh my God, they've entrained us to build paths all over the world, to pull out oil, to do all of these sorts of things. So you can look at it in either direction. And when you say it's not going to be smart enough to solve rain, of course it can protect itself in that environment, but it already has its minions all over the place to do all those things. Why not go out into space and create a place on the moon in a vacuum and a nice environment? I mean, it's not in opposition to us. We're not competing for resources with one another.
We're not competing because we are not competitive. The example you give with cars is a beautiful example. We historically grandfathered them in. If we had no cars and somebody said today, I invented this thing, it's called a car, it kills about 100,000 people every year, but you get pizza faster. Would that get approved? Would that go through government regulations and they would say, yeah, deploy it sounds awesome? Of course not. But because we have it now as part of infrastructure, we deal with it.
Artificial intelligence will solve that problem, by the way.
Pizza.
Artificial intelligence will stop killing people.
We were told that this solved 6 years ago, so. But it is an important realization. Software is not safe. We didn't create safe software. They trained us to click, I agree to take on any damages, whatever it causes.
You are not safe. You are not safe.
Jay, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little something to the incendiary mix here. You might argue that it doesn't matter, like let them take over, right? Because there's this symbiosis taking place. I mean, people tend to think of it's us versus them, and it's probably going to be us and them, right? So it's going to be more of a symbiotic relationship. It's going to be more of a hybridization and integration of human consciousness, machine intelligence. I think we tend to be very polarized, but we tend to be dichotomous also in terms of the way that we think, right? Which is that like it's machines and humans. But like humans and machines are both really complex dynamical systems. We're both in some sense performing computation, right? I mean, you have biological computation and you have non-biological computation. And the way that I see the future progressing in this regard is that there's going to be a merging of these things, right? Mind uploads, other sorts of technologies. And it's not an antagonistic relationship the way that it's being portrayed.
Let me just add something quickly. I lived 3 years in Japan, and in Japan they have a totally different mentality. I'll give 2 examples. In the classic problem, you have this card. Do you kill the old lady or you kill the baby? Western societies would kill the old person. In Eastern Asia, it is the opposite because they are accomplished people. So you kill the baby that has done nothing. But I'll tell you something also. In Eastern mentality, machines are good. Artificial intelligence are good. This is a very Western discussion, totally Western. Go to Japan, go to Korea. Actually, we have some Koreans here. Go to China. They love artificial intelligence. They love robots. And I'll give you an example that people will understand. Dragons. Dragons are bad in the West. Dragons destroy cities. Dragons eat people. But in the East, they are good. Actually, the dragon is the holiest animal in East Asia. Sadly, it does not exist. And this is the year of the dragon because dragons are the best. So I know in the West, people are afraid, oh, the dragons are bad, the robots are bad. But in the East, they are good. That is why Korea, China, Japan will develop these technologies, especially if the West is afraid. So open up your mind, think Eastern way, and it will be a different world. And robots are fantastic. I want a robot president.
I wanted a robot president, and I went to Japan, and I haven't found a single robot. They stopped development in 1990s.
I know that we're going to be closing off soon, but I just want to say that, changing slightly about the cultural aspect, but we can't leave people behind. And at the moment, I think people are I guess the conversation needs to be about how do we manage to make sure that doesn't happen? How do we make sure that we're solving problems on the ground now that are stopping people from being involved in this conversation, that's stopping people from understanding what the opportunities are, the advantages for them, because it's not part of their system, their process, their culture, their insights. People are trying to live hand to mouth, day to day, live till the next day. It's not, technology is something that's out there for them at this point in time. So in our day-to-day activities, how do we communicate? How do we educate? Everything that Ben said actually earlier on, how do we actually do that? And in our community of founders and investors, it's really how do we ensure that the people that are building, the founders are building AI for good, are building technology, advanced technology, whatever that looks like, whatever it's called, because again, in our human activities, labels are questionable. How do we make sure that that is happening? So I just really wanted to round it back to that there are people that are not part of this conversation that don't understand what's actually going on, and they need to be part of it. So I'd like everyone to really think about that, and I'd like to learn as well. So I'm here to that. Thank you.
Looking to make AI development, AGI development, more thoughtful, not only existential risks, but potentially the access, the very human risks that can roll out here, regulation, and all these factors factor into this. So before we close, I just want to go back through, touch for each of you on, the only reason that we're here today is we think that AGI is coming, or we wouldn't be here. And we think that there are things that we can do right now to put AGI on a beneficial direction, or we wouldn't be here. So I want to touch on, with our panel of experts here, what do you think are the most powerful actions that we can be taking, most powerful directions we can be taking now that help guide AGI down that path of becoming beneficial?
So I'm not really sure. I think that the thing that we can most do, I believe, is to not try and protect ourselves from the unknowns that might emerge, because there are so many things that we can be afraid of, but to be as responsive as we can to the problems that actually emerge, to respond to them. Because I think we deceive ourselves if we think this is going to be some easy cakewalk, that this is going to be pleasant, that this is a birth. These are messy sorts of things, and there's going to be all sorts of disruption and change that occurs, and we can imagine 1,000 things that could be difficult for us. And the more we try and protect against those, the more that we're going to constrain ourselves from responding to the real problems that do emerge, and understanding and monitoring and addressing them very quickly when they happen.
Yes, thank you.
Talking about 1,000 things happening, I was thinking about Deng Xiaoping in China. When he opened China, he said, "Let 1,000 flowers bloom." And I think this is very important, because also we are focusing on large language models when AI and AGI is so big. It can do so many things. So I want to see more competition. I want to see more startups, universities, companies working on this, and not only in the USA. I want to see the ones in China, because Deng Xiaoping was Chinese, and he talked about that, and Baidu, Tencent are doing many things in China. So I think we need more instead of less, but we need competition. We need a lot of competition, and let the winners win.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I think we need to be kind to each other. Because we have to solve problems that are happening right now. And so in being empathetic to each other, that enables us to have that engagement with machinery. So I think at the moment, for example, I run an accelerator program. The accelerator program is not governed necessarily by anything, and signing up to some ethical committees, I think, is something that's important on driving that. So having ethical committees, ethical points that we feed back into. Again, like I mentioned, investors don't seem to have anything at the moment, no governance around ethics, or how they're building AI for good. So I think that's key for, as we move forward in developing our companies and technology. And also, I think, it's back to, I think I mentioned this before, communication. How do we communicate and educate? And have that message rolled out, and listening back to people, listening back to their concerns. Yes, we say, people are saying these, they're going to be taking our jobs. Whatever they, looks like I said, labels. Listening to that, these people have concerns around this. And then it's back to ownership and responsibility. Where AI is enabling more efficiencies, who's reskilling? Whose responsibility is it to reskill those individuals that now do not have a job? Because there are other jobs out there they could do. There are other jobs that we don't have any awareness of that's coming. Is it the government's responsibility? Is it the organisation that's now becoming more efficient that is responsibility? Is it the individual's responsibility? We're talking about the individual's responsibility. Do they have the money to reskill themselves? Do they have access to that capital? And so, again, it's how do we bring all that together? I think those things are very important from my perspective.
Beautiful. Be kind. Start with us, right? Thank you. Roman.
I'm a big believer in the power of personal self-interest. Ask yourself, is it in your best interest to create super powerful machines no one knows how to control? Maybe you think you do. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Nothing would make me happier than to be proven wrong. Do it. Publish results. Show how we can stay safe and secure indefinitely against any level of intelligence, no matter how much it scales, no matter how distributed it is, no matter what architecture they use. Please, I will change my mind, I will update. But so far, no one in the world can claim that they have a working safety mechanism or even a prototype.
It's a good challenge. Everybody here. Solve our AI safety troubles.
Yeah, so I'd just like to add at the end here that as an educator, I think that the role of education is critically important. I mean, we're a bunch of highly educated people here, but that's not true of the majority of people. In fact, my students won't believe that anything they see appears on their tiny little screen. So, I think that misinformation and disinformation are just rampant, and people don't know the truth. And when you live in a post-truth society where people don't understand what's real and what's not real, then that's scary to me, because that's the whole point of education, is to get people to think critically, get people to understand what's real. And you can't, that's like the starting point, that's non-negotiable. So if human beings are gonna be making these changes like we are at the outset, then we've got to know what is true. We totally bungled social media. That problem hasn't been resolved in terms of regulation or decentralization yet. And now deepfakes are on the rise, right? And that's going to be a major problem for the upcoming elections. So how do we deal with people getting? I'm more worried about people understanding the truth than I'm worried about machines understanding the truth. So to me, I would end on that note.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank all of our brilliant panelists here today. I hope that they've laid out a very interesting landscape of risks, benefits, actions that we can all be thinking about. I hope everybody's got their own thoughts, their own list of ideas on what are the greatest risks, what are the benefits, what are we aiming towards, and what are we guarding from, perhaps, and what can we be doing right now. And I hope this space provokes a whole lot more of that reflection for everybody this week. So thank you.
Thank you, Haley.